Moving into my husband's family home felt like stepping into a ghost town. Everyone pretended I didn't exist. "This is yours," his mother said. I smiled and sold it. The next day, they learned I left them homeless. So picture this, right? I'm married to this guy for 3 years, and his family basically treats me like I'm some random stranger who wandered into their backyard BBQ uninvited. No cap, these people acted like I was invisible most of the time. Like I'd walk into a room and suddenly everyone's having selective hearing or something. My husband Jake, bless his heart, but honestly, dude had zero backbone when it came to his family, kept making excuses for them. "Oh, they're just set in their ways," or "give them time, they'll warm up to you." Yeah, right, buddy. 3 years and counting, and his mom still couldn't remember my favorite drink at family dinners. Spoiler alert, it's literally just Coke. Not rocket science, but here's where things get real interesting. Jake's grandmother passes away last spring, and apparently this old lady had some serious real estate game going on, left behind this massive Victorian house that's been in their family for like forever. We're talking one of those houses that probably costs more than most people make in a decade, you know? Beautiful place, but honestly felt like stepping into a horror movie set with all the creaky floors and weird shadows. The whole family's gathered around for the will reading like we're in some cheesy Lifetime movie. I'm sitting there sipping my gas station coffee thinking I'm just moral support, when boom, turns out Grandma left the house to Jake. Not the family collectively, not his parents who'd been taking care of her for years, but specifically to my husband. You should have seen the faces around that room. His mom looked like someone just told her Starbucks was closing permanently. His dad went totally silent, which honestly was more terrifying than if he'd started yelling. And his sister? Girl straight up started crying right there in the lawyer's office. But here's the kicker. And I'm telling you this because hindsight's got me laughing now. The lawyer keeps emphasizing that since Jake and I are married, technically I'm part owner too. Like, legally speaking, this house belongs to both of us. Jake's nodding along like he gets it, but I can tell his family's processing this information about as well as a computer from 1995 trying to run TikTok. So we move into this place, and immediately I'm getting these weird vibes. Not supernatural stuff, though honestly wouldn't have surprised me, but more like everyone's expecting me to mess something up. His mom's coming over daily, supposedly to help us settle in, but really she's just rearranging everything I touch and making these passive-aggressive comments about how grandmother always liked things a certain way. Jake's working these crazy long hours at his construction job, leaving me alone in this massive house with his family dropping by whenever they felt like it. No joke, I'd be trying to eat lunch and suddenly his sister's walking through the front, Ducker with her spare key, talking about how she needs to grab some family photos from upstairs. The breaking point came about 2 months after we moved in. I'm having the worst day ever. Car wouldn't start, spilled coffee all over my work laptop. Just one of those days where nothing goes right. I come home looking forward to just chilling on the couch with some Netflix and maybe ordering pizza. But no. I walk through that front door and the entire family's sitting in my living room having what's basically a family meeting about the house. Nobody thought to mention this little gathering to me, obviously. They all turn and look at me like I just interrupted some top-secret government briefing. Jake's mom stands up with this fake smile that could have been plastered on a Walmart greeter and goes, "Oh, perfect timing. We were just discussing some changes we'd like to make to grandmother's house. Changes to my house that I live in." She starts going on about how they want to turn the guest bedroom into a sort of family shrine for grandmother, complete with all her old furniture and photos. Sweet idea, right? Except the guest bedroom happens to be where I set up my home office since I work remotely half the week. When I mention this tiny detail, you'd think I just suggested burning down a church or something. His sister jumps in talking about how disrespectful it is to prioritize work over family memories. His dad starts mumbling about how I don't understand the significance of keeping family traditions alive. And Jake, my loving husband who's supposed to have my back, dude just sits there looking like a deer caught in headlights, occasionally nodding when his mom talks. That's when something just clicked in my brain. Like a switch flipping, you know? I realized I wasn't family to these people. I was just some temporary inconvenience they were tolerating until they figured out how to get rid of me. So I smiled, put on my biggest, brightest smile and told them how touched I was that they wanted to honor grandmother's memory in such a beautiful way. Said we'd absolutely make it work somehow. Maybe I could set up my office in the basement or something. They ate that up like free samples at Costco. Jake's mom actually hugged me and said she was so happy I finally understood how important family was. His sister thanked me for being flexible and understanding. Even his dad cracked a smile and patted my shoulder. But here's the thing they didn't know. And honestly, Jake didn't know either because apparently we never talked about the boring legal stuff. I'd been doing some research on property laws after all their comments about the house. Turns out, when you're married and your spouse inherits property, it becomes what's called marital property in our state, meaning I had just as much legal right to that house as Jake did. Update. Hey everyone, thanks for following along with this crazy story. Just wanted to give you all a heads up that things are about to get really interesting. I made a decision that's going to change everything, and honestly, I'm still processing it all myself. My phone's been blowing up nonstop since yesterday, and I'm pretty sure half the town knows what went down by now. Should I have handled this differently, or was it time someone finally stood up to these people? The next morning, I'm sipping my coffee and scrolling through real estate websites like it's just casual browsing, but really I'm checking out what similar houses in our neighborhood are selling for. And let me tell you, the numbers were making my eyes go wide like I just saw a celebrity at Target. This house, worth way more than I ever imagined. We're talking serious money here, the kind that could set someone up pretty comfortably for a long time. The kind of money that could buy a smaller, more manageable place and still leave plenty left over for, oh, I don't know, actually enjoying life instead of walking on eggshells around people who barely tolerate your existence. I spent the whole day researching real estate agents, property values, market trends, all that fun stuff. By evening, I had a pretty clear picture of what we were working with. When Jake got home from work, I tried bringing up the idea of maybe selling the house and finding something smaller, just the two of us. You'd have thought I suggested we join a cult or something. Jake looked at me like I'd completely lost my mind and started going on about family legacy and how his grandmother would be rolling in her grave if we sold her precious house to strangers. But it's our house now, I reminded him. Legally, we can do whatever we want with it. Wrong thing to say, apparently. That just set him off even more about respecting family wishes and honoring traditions and all that jazz. The conversation ended with him storming off to call his mom, probably to tell her about my crazy idea. Sure enough, the next day his mom's knocking on our door bright and early with this concerned expression like she's about to stage an intervention. She sits me down at the kitchen table with this serious look and starts talking about how she understands it must be overwhelming to suddenly own such a big house, but how important it is to preserve family history. Then she drops this bomb. I want you to know that this house will always be yours. No matter what happens between you and Jake, this is your home too. At first I thought she was actually being nice for once. Like maybe she finally realized I wasn't going anywhere and decided to make peace. But then she keeps talking, and I realize what she's really doing is trying to guilt me into staying put and not rocking the boat. Grandmother specifically wanted Jake to have this house because she knew he'd take care of it the way she would have wanted. She trusted him to make the right decisions about its future. The right decisions. As determined by her, obviously. That's when it hit me. These people weren't ever going to accept me as family. They were just trying to manage me, like I was some problem they had to solve. Keep me happy enough that I wouldn't cause trouble, but make sure I knew my place in their little hierarchy. So I thanked her for the reassurance and told her how much it meant to me to feel so welcome in the family. Really laid it on thick, you know? She left looking pretty satisfied with herself, probably thinking she'd successfully handled the situation. But that afternoon, I made a phone call that was going to change everything. I called a real estate agent. Not to browse or get estimates or just see what's out there. I called to list the house for sale. Like, for real, for real. The agent came out that same evening to do a walkthrough and appraisal. Professional lady, probably mid-40s, drove up in a black BMW and knew her stuff. She's walking through the house, taking notes and photos, asking about recent renovations and utility costs, all the technical stuff. When she gave me the estimated listing price, I had to sit down. This house was worth significantly more than I'd even researched online. We're talking life-changing money here, the kind of money that could buy financial freedom and a fresh start somewhere far away from family drama. How quickly could this sell? I asked her. She looked around the house, again, considering, in this market, with a property this unique and well-maintained, probably within 2 weeks, maybe less if we price it right. I signed the paperwork that night. Jake was working late again, some big project that had him pulling overtime all week. I texted him that I was heading to bed early and not to wake me when he got home. Then I spent the evening researching apartments in different cities, places where I could start over without everyone knowing my business. The listing went live the next morning at 8 a.m. sharp. Update. Okay, folks, the listing is officially live. And my phone is absolutely going insane. I've gotten more calls in the past 6 hours than I usually get in a month. Jake doesn't know yet. He left for work before I was even awake. But something tells me that's about to change real quick. His family drives past this house multiple times a day, so it's only a matter of time before someone spots that for sale sign. Think they'll figure out I was serious about not wanting to live in their family shrine forever? The real question is, what's going to happen when Jake finds out? By 10 a.m., I had 3 showing appointments scheduled for that afternoon. The real estate agent called to tell me there was already significant interest, which honestly didn't surprise me. This house was gorgeous, even if it came with more family baggage than a reality TV show. I spent the morning packing up my personal stuff. Not everything, just the important things. Photos, documents, my laptop, some clothes. Basically anything I'd need if I had to leave quickly. Call it preparation or paranoia, but something told me things were about to get very complicated very fast. The first showing was at 2 p.m. Nice young couple, probably early 30s, looking for their forever home. They walked through that house like they were touring a mansion, which I guess they basically were. The woman kept pointing out architectural details and talking about how they could update certain rooms while preserving the historical character. Second showing at 3:30. Older couple, probably looking to downsize from an even bigger place. They were asking practical questions about maintenance costs and property taxes, the kind of stuff that told me they were serious buyers with real money. Third showing at 4:15. Investment group looking to potentially turn it into a bed and breakfast or event venue. They were taking measurements and discussing renovation possibilities like they'd already bought the place. All 3 showings went amazing. Everyone loved the house, and the agent was getting that excited look real estate people get when they know they've got something good. I was just cleaning up after the last showing when I heard Jake's truck pulling into the driveway, earlier than usual, which probably meant someone had already called him about the for sale sign that was now planted prominently in our front yard. He walked through that front door looking like someone had just told him his favorite sports team had been disbanded. Just stood there staring at me with this expression I'd never seen before. "Please tell me that sign outside is some kind of joke," he said finally. I could have lied, could have made up some story about how I was just testing the market or getting an appraisal for insurance purposes. But honestly, I was tired of pretending and making excuses and trying to keep everyone else comfortable. It's not a joke, I told him straight up. The house is for sale. The next hour was probably the most intense conversation we'd ever had as a married couple. Jake went through every emotion you can imagine: confusion, anger, hurt, betrayal, panic. He kept asking how I could do this without talking to him first, how I could be so disrespectful to his family's memory, how I could throw away everything his grandmother had wanted for them. But here's what really got me. Not once did he ask why I wanted to sell the house. Not once did he seem to consider that maybe, just maybe, I had valid reasons for not wanting to live there anymore. It was all about what his family wanted, what his grandmother would have wanted, what everyone else needed. Never once about what might be best for us as a couple, or what might make me happy. That's when I realized our marriage had been over for a while. I just hadn't wanted to admit it to myself. His mom showed up about 20 minutes into our argument. Apparently Jake had called her in a panic, and she'd driven straight over to help sort this mess out. She walked into our house without knocking, which honestly just proved my point about boundaries and respect. She tried the same approach she'd used before, talking about family legacy and grandmother's wishes and how important it was to preserve tradition. But this time I wasn't having it. This is my house too, I told her calmly. And I've decided I don't want to live here anymore. You can't just sell grandmother's house, she practically shouted. Actually, I can, I replied. Jake and I own this house jointly. I have every legal right to sell it. That's when things got really ugly. She started yelling about how ungrateful I was, how I never appreciated everything they'd done for me, how I was destroying their family. Jake just stood there letting her go off on me in our own living room. But then she said something that changed everything. If you sell this house, you'll have nowhere to live. Jake will never forgive you for this and you'll end up with nothing. I smiled at her, not a fake smile this time, but a real one. Actually, I said, I'll end up with half the sale price of a house worth several $100,000. That's not nothing. The look on her face when she realized I wasn't just being emotional or impulsive, that I'd actually thought this through and knew exactly what I was doing, priceless. Jake tried one last desperate attempt to change my mind. He promised we could set boundaries with his family, that we could make changes to the house so I'd be more comfortable, that things would be different. But I was done. 3 years of being treated like an outsider in my own marriage was enough. The house sold in 6 days, cash offer, no contingencies, from the investment group that wanted to turn it into an event venue. They offered asking price and could close within 2 weeks. Jake's family lost their minds when they found out. His sister called me crying, begging me to reconsider. His dad tried to get their lawyer involved, but there was nothing illegal about what I'd done. His mom alternated between leaving angry voicemails and showing up at the house demanding to talk. But Jake just shut down completely. Wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't discuss logistics, wouldn't even look at me. He moved back in with his parents temporarily, while we figured out the divorce details. Because yeah, we're getting divorced. Turns out when you make a major life decision without considering your spouse's feelings at all, it tends to highlight some pretty fundamental problems in the relationship. The closing was on a Tuesday morning. I sat at that conference table signing paperwork, while Jake sat as far away from me as possible, barely speaking except when the lawyers required his signature. When it was all done, I walked out of there with a check for half the sale price. Enough money to buy a small house outright in a different state, or rent a nice apartment for several years while I figured out what I wanted to do next. Jake got his half too, obviously. But here's the thing that's kind of funny in a dark way. His family had been so focused on keeping the house in the family that they never stopped to consider what would happen if it got sold. They didn't have anywhere to go. See, Jake's parents had been living in a small apartment and using the big house for all their family gatherings and holidays. His sister had been storing half her stuff in the basement. They'd all been treating it like their personal family clubhouse. Now suddenly they're scrambling to find a new place big enough for their family events, trying to figure out where to put all of grandmother's furniture and photos, dealing with the reality that their family gathering place is gone forever. And me? I'm sitting in my new apartment 3 states away, drinking coffee on my balcony and watching the sunrise over a city where nobody knows my business, or expects me to smile and nod while they ignore my existence. Update. Final update for everyone who's been following this wild ride. I'm writing this from my new place, and honestly, life is pretty good. Got myself a cute little apartment with a view, started a new job that I actually enjoy, and for the first time in years, I wake up without that anxious feeling in my stomach. The divorce paperwork is almost finalized, and Jake's family has stopped calling me, finally. Someone asked if I feel bad about selling the house. Honestly, not even a little bit. Sometimes you have to choose yourself, even when everyone else thinks you're the villain. Thanks for reading along with this crazy chapter of my life. Here's to new beginnings and learning to put yourself first. The crazy part is, I don't even feel guilty about it anymore. For a while there, I was second-guessing myself, wondering if maybe I'd been too harsh or if I should have tried harder to make things work. But then I remember sitting in that living room while Jake's family planned changes to my house without including me in the conversation. I remember 3 years of being treated like a temporary guest in my own marriage. I remember Jake choosing his family's comfort over my basic dignity every single time, and I realized I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending that being treated badly was normal. The money from the house sale set me up pretty nicely. I bought a small house in a college town about 5 hours away from all the drama. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. All mine. No family members with spare keys. No unexpected visitors rearranging my furniture. No walking on eggshells around people who act like I don't belong. I got a job at a local marketing firm that actually values my skills and treats me like a professional. Adult human being. Novel concept, right? My coworkers invite me to happy hour and remember my birthday and ask about my weekend plans like I'm an actual person worth knowing. Jake tried reaching out a few months after everything was finalized. Sent me this long text about how he'd been thinking about everything that happened and maybe we'd both made mistakes and perhaps we could try working things out. I read it, deleted it, and went back to watching Netflix with my new cat. Yes, I got a cat. Orange tabby named Mango who doesn't judge me for eating ice cream for dinner or staying in pajamas all weekend. His family, from what I hear through mutual friends, had to completely restructure their holiday traditions. Turns out when you lose your family gathering place, you actually have to think about logistics, like where everyone's going to sit and who's hosting and whether someone's apartment can fit 15 people for Thanksgiving dinner. Jake's mom tried to guilt trip some of their other relatives into hosting at their houses, but apparently most people aren't thrilled about turning their homes into the new family headquarters. Who could have seen that coming? Jake ended up buying a smaller house with his half of the money, but it's just a regular 3-bedroom place in the suburbs. Not exactly the grand family estate his mom was envisioning for future generations. And me? I'm doing great. Better than great, actually. I'm dating someone new, a guy who actually listens when I talk and doesn't need his mommy's permission to make decisions about his own life. Wild concept, I know. My new house has a garden where I grow vegetables and herbs. I've got friends who come over for dinner without rearranging my kitchen afterward. I joined a book club and a hiking group and rediscovered hobbies I'd forgotten. I enjoyed. Most importantly, I wake up every morning in a space that's entirely mine, surrounded by people who chose to have me in their lives because they actually like me as a person. Not because they have to tolerate me, not because I come attached to someone else they care about, but because I'm worth knowing all by myself. The house that caused all this drama? Last I heard, the investment group turned it into exactly what they planned. A beautiful event venue where people come to celebrate the happiest days of their lives. Weddings, anniversaries, graduations, all kinds of joyful occasions. I like to think grandmother would have preferred that over it being turned into a shrine where everyone walked around on eggshells trying not to disturb her memory. At least now, it's full of laughter and celebration instead of passive-aggressive family meetings and silent treatment dinners. Sometimes people ask if I regret selling the house or getting divorced, if I think I could have handled things differently. And honestly, the only thing I regret is waiting so long to put myself first. I spent 3 years trying to earn acceptance from people who were never going to give it. 3 years smiling through disrespect and making excuses for people who couldn't be bothered to learn my favorite drink. 3 years being married to someone who thought keeping his family happy was more important than making sure his wife felt valued and respected. That house was never going to be home for me because the people in it never wanted me there in the first place. They wanted Jake to be happy, and they were willing to tolerate me as long as I didn't cause any trouble or make any waves or expect to be treated like family. But here's what they didn't count on. I had just as much legal right to that house as anyone else. And when push came to shove, I wasn't afraid to use it. So yeah, I sold the house, took my money, and started over somewhere nobody expected me to be grateful for scraps of basic human decency. And you know what? Best decision I ever made. Life's too short to spend it trying to convince people you're worth their respect. Sometimes you just have to respect yourself enough to walk away, even when, especially when, everyone else thinks you're crazy for doing it. These days, when I'm sitting on my back porch with Mango purring in my lap, watching the sunset over my little garden, I can't help but smile thinking about how things turned out. They wanted to keep me in my place, and I guess they did, in a way. My place just turned out to be somewhere a lot better than they ever imagined.